Welcome back to Fear and Loathing in the Windy City. Thank you again for tuning into our show where we discuss Democratic Party's power within the city of Chicago, all local politics here, and how it pertains to the national election, which many of you are tuned in to this network to find out more about. Our first story today, well, before we start, thank you again to my special guest, to my guest host here, Kate Cabell, will be joining us again. Just being a pro.
Well, here's the thing: we got a lot to unpack for today's show, and it's Illinois politics, but it's to bigger to get to a bigger picture. It deals with this presidential election cycle. It deals with a lot of national issues, and I'm just going to be biased in my point of view, and you know what? It stands to be corrected, and it should be. But I'm going to say Illinois will be a key pivotal state for this primary election cycle, especially whoever gets the Democratic nomination. I mean, it's going to be important. This state is important.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to have a big indicator on Saturday with where South Carolina lands on candidates, which will really feed into Super Tuesday. And out of that comes Illinois, a few other races. But because, as we've been learning on this show, how much of what the DNC, the Democratic Party in D.C., and everywhere in the Midwest is really affected by whatever's going on within the Chicagoland area and Illinois in general. After March 17th, in 3 weeks, we're really going to see whether this race is going to be made up of the internal shenanigans that this party is known for, or whether we're going to see a clear front runner because democracy has won out.
Yep.
So we're going to start today's show with our favorite character, Michael Madigan,
Oh, boy.
Speaker of the Illinois House. He has recently been he has been in trouble, as we've known, with a lot of the FBI circling his inner circle with probes. He is currently part of a subpoena by the IRS that includes many more of his inner circle. Marty Quinn, Michael Madigan, Michael McLean, Timothy Mapes, Kevin Quinn, Marty Quinn, and Raymond T. Nice, who seems to be at the center of all this, a contractor with ComEd that worked for the speaker that was connected to this network. They've all been subpoenaed by the IRS to release all of their internal documentations of communications by March 4th in a corruption probe. We saw recently this year how that these charges have brought down a powerful state senator in Marty Sandoval. We also know that, as we've started this program, that a lot of these tower moments for the machine in Chicago really started with the indictment of Ed Burke, the powerful city council member of City Hall. So this is just another trend that started back in 2019, but culminating, getting closer to the speaker and his way of doing things. However, even his staunchest opponents will tell you that Michael Madigan is an extremely careful and extremely fickle man. He does not. He knows the law well. He makes the law often. And what will come of this, we don't know. Is it really going to bring down the speaker? We don't know. But what we know is that a very careful man has to be even more careful. And will this play to the benefit of the Republican Party? Will this play to the benefit of the progressives, or will this make the people that are currently in trouble act even more desperate to put themselves in a safe space? And what does that mean for us?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here. First, at the end of the day, I would not underestimate Michael Madigan and his ability to survive. This is a man who's been Speaker of the House for the state of Illinois for a very long time, even before I was born, even before many of us in this room were born. He's also the leader of the Illinois Democratic Party. Do I think Michael Madigan can probably get away with this unscathed? Yeah, there's a good possibility. This is a man who's who is politically astute. He's smart. And as much as people might hate him and blame him for a lot of problems in Illinois, he knows how to use the system. Now, is there a potential chance, however unlikely it could be, that this could be the end of the Illinois Democratic machine? Maybe. We're seeing cracks in it. Now, you did bring up some very interesting points. Does this benefit the Republican Party here in the state of Illinois? I'm going to say no. My reasons are because when you compare the Illinois Democratic machine to the Illinois Republican machine, because it's a machine, the DNC machine here in Illinois is more put together. And, of course, it's corrupt. No argument about that. It's just the Illinois Republican machine. It's more disorganized. In fact,
Yes.
with former Governor Bruce Rauner, he was only funding it with his own money. And as soon as his popularity failed, I mean, he lost support with the Illinois Republicans after that big showdown was him and Madigan. And who won? Madigan won.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I mean, Bruce Rauner did that to himself because he was going after Madigan. This is a guy who knows how to, weasel his way out of it. So Madigan can probably get away with this. As for the others, I don't think so. Madigan will get away. He's the boss man. He is he's the face of the Illinois Democratic Party, whether we like it or not. And then finally, could this help progressives? The answer is yes, because there's a crack in the machine.
Yes.
But we would be fools if we didn't take advantage of this.
Right, which is the point of this show, to better inform progressives and would-be progressives and anti-establishment people to understand what they can do in this moment in time, not squander this opportunity. As you said, the Republican Party is a machine here, and I think that you just really made something click for me. The National Republican Party is disciplined. They are disciplined on messaging, on their power hierarchy, on their loyalty. And Michael Madigan, as a hidden, shadowy figure, kind of that hasn't been known until Bruce Rauner kind of put him front and center, was able to provide all of that to the Illinois Democratic Party. As you said, they are, for all of the corruption, for how many people go to jail, for all of that, there is a sense of loyalty to the speaker, mostly, not, which becomes the party. And by going after his inner circle, I'm guessing federal officials are really trying to find someone that's going to have some kind of, smoking gun, some kind of, that they're going to give up to them about the speaker. And it just, whether it's the Republican national discipline or the Illinois Democratic code of silence, I just don't think the federal investigators are going to get there.
I think everyone else on that list, save for Madigan, will go down. But I think this is the opportunity for progressives and independents in the state of Illinois. That means Chicago DSA, Chicago Socialist Alternative, Our Revolution Illinois, and all the other progressive groups. I can name you guys, but at the end of the day, all the progressive groups in the state of Illinois. This is a time where you need to step up, because I don't think you'll see this opportunity. If we allow the machine to heal itself, we lose our opening and we are seeing cracks. It can be done, but I think we also have to start moving on. But
Yeah, and we're going to move on to, our next story, which is our formerly incarcerated governor, Rod Blagojevich. He's recently released famously by Trump. He was pardoned. There he is. Giving us his best I know what I'm talking about look. Rod Blagojevich was, well, he's being tarred and feathered on by national media. Anderson Cooper really lit into him the other day. And, to Rod's credit, he did push back quite formidably, the way that an Illinois politician would be prone to do. He's an interesting character, and a lot of his release has, I would think, has to do with the trouble that Michael Madigan is in. I mean, Donald Trump didn't release Rod Blagojevich because he felt sorry for him, because, his family was missing him, because this was unfair that he's been in there for so long, because he cares. It's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump released them in a self-serving manner. Rod Blagojevich is now, I think Ben Jarosky really had a good analysis of this in The Reader. Rod Blagojevich, just by being himself right now and his own kind of, very bombastic and kind of outgoing attitude and demeanor, is kind of a 24/7 Trump ad running around in Illinois local politics. He's also aggravating the internal Democratic machine here. And while, Michael Madigan is doing his best to double check his math and look back at his correspondence and see what he said and see if anything untowards within the law as he has formed it himself has transpired or could be found out, he has to deal with that in the background. So Rod Blagojevich, I think there's a lot to say about the man, but the moment that he's in and what role is he serving, most definitely serving himself. But I think, inadvertently and unabashedly, he's also helping Donald Trump's reelection.
Looking at Blago, he was an embarrassment, but it was all the governors. He's in that long, sad line of history of governors who were in charge of Illinois that went to jail. and he can't shake that off. And yeah, he got pardoned by Trump, but at the end of the day, I look at him and I think, okay, well, what role will he play? What can he do to really, I don't know, get support for Trump? Because he went on air, basically said, yeah, I'm going to support Trump. Of course, because he got freed by Trump. I mean, no doubt about that. But he is also his own worst enemy. I've always been told this quote: in life, no one can do you in like you can do yourself in. There's nobody out there plotting to destroy you. There's no one, you and whatever your problems are, they're your problems and they will bring you down. Blago is his own problem. He can, when you see him and how he acted, especially his time for governor, yes, there's the good and the bad with all governors and all leaders, but at the end of the day, he failed to commit a crime, really, trying to sell Obama's seat. I mean, he couldn't even pull that off. But the Illinois Democratic machine and the political system here held him accountable, and he went to jail. Now he got pardoned by Trump, and now he's out there. So he will be an interesting factor to play. But when people finally see Blagojevich, they're going to remember why he wasn't all that great in the first place.
I think they'll see that he talks a very good game.
That is true. He does.
He does talk a very good game. He went down not just for selling Obama's seat, but he was also shaking down a children's hospital for campaign donations. Yeah. Politicians shaking down, long-standing institutions for campaign contributions probably isn't unheard of in Illinois. It's definitely not unheard of in Illinois, clearly. But the way he does it, as you said, his own worst enemy. You are, number one, shaking down children's hospitals. You're trying to sell a Senate seat of, a man who everybody in the world is looking to see what he's going to do next. And you're going to serve up his first embarrassment. And you're also picking an ongoing fight with the most powerful speaker of Illinois history, and Michael Madigan. I mean, don't forget, Michael Madigan and Blagojevich were on the outs while he was governor. Blagojevich really thought that he could take on Michael Madigan, like many people mistakenly have thought. And Blagojevich went to jail for it. He made a lot of mistakes, but his independent streak and his purposeful outreach to many Black and brown communities in his time of governorship, cynically to take these power brokers and groups away from Michael Madigan, is still resonating today. That's what some groups remember him for, that he actually reached out while Madigan was picking other winners. And I feel like Blagojevich, he himself wants to see how much of that he can get back for some kind of nostalgia, for some kind of run, for some kind of platform.
Revenge, maybe.
Revenge, definitely popular in Illinois politics. And of course, he wants to deliver all these to Donald Trump.
Like I said before, I'm not going to underestimate Michael Madigan. He is an astute political animal, and Blago going after Madigan for revenge, I mean, emotions do run high, and we saw what happened. He did it the last time. We saw what happened when Ronner did it. I would not expect to think that they can ride on a wave of beating Madigan. There's a way to defeat Michael Madigan, but this kind of emotional charge, it could end up as a disaster. Again, voters, a lot of people don't like Madigan, but I mean, we'll see how this turns out.
It does seem they're coming at him from all angles. There's a federal angle, which is clearly coming from the federal government, who runs that, and this emotionally charged. I mean, it's a two-pronged attack, I do think, but I do think the emotionally charged attacks are not. That's what Bruce Rauner was on for Michael Madigan. He had the Illinois Policy Institute do a whole documentary. There wasn't much policy in it at all. It was mostly just bashing Michael Madigan and the way he does business. He would have Michael Madigan's name and character and caricatures and cartoons on the papers when people hadn't really heard of him, as much, unless you were into politics up to that point. And Madigan not only withstood all that, he beat back Rauner's candidates. He took back whatever Rauner was taking from him. And, in helping J.B. Pritzker become governor, I think he's also solidified a future for the Illinois Democratic Party, even if he himself is to be brought down.
Yeah. A legacy lasts forever, and that's something that a lot of people have learned the hard way when dealing with Madigan.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on to Madigan's new best friend, his progressive parachute, and now our fair weather ally in the Bernie Sanders movement, Chuy Garcia, who we have heard about and talked about on this show, has recently endorsed Bernie. And you see Bernie Sanders there very happy to receive Chuy Garcia's endorsement 3 weeks before the Illinois primary, despite Bernie coming out early for Chuy's mayoral run, despite Bernie giving Chuy some progressive cover for the deal making he did to get to his congressional seat for Michael Madigan, despite Bernie being a astute ally. Garcia endorsed him before the Nevada caucus. Mr. Chuck Rocha of Bernie's campaign, hard at work to make sure Nevada went the way it did. Chuy taking some of the credit there and lending his name to these endeavors. But I feel like we've talked about why it's problematic that there's a progressive machine being built up, because machines are meant to continuously run and withstand. And we've seen in Chicago politics that comes first before passing policy. It's problems with machines in politics. They're meant to be protecting themselves. However, we've also discussed, is there any other way to do this? So Chuy remains kind of a gray figure. But now with his endorsement of Bernie Sanders, if you're here pulling for his run, this does go a long way to delivering Chicagoland to Bernie, and away from Joe Biden and away from Elizabeth Warren, who and Pete Buttigieg. All of these figures being relatively competitive in the state. Joe Biden, I think, was leading at one point. Michael Madigan and a lot of his staffers, lobbyists, jumping into Buttigieg's camp early, and that seeming like a safe bet. And of course, there's Michael Bloomberg money in downtown. That's also going to be a concern.
Yeah.
Garcia's endorsement definitely is welcomed. Does this make him part of the squad?
Okay. Here's how I'm looking at Chuy Garcia. You need to have a power player in Illinois. And here's what the bigger picture with American politics is that our system is so corrupt to the core. To the core. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. It's so corrupted that we're lucky that we have someone like Bernie Sanders and AOC and Rashid Tlaib right now that are in office right now. We're lucky that even Chuy Garcia is in. And of course, no one is perfect. None of these politicians are perfect. You must always hold them accountable, because the minute you put them on a pedestal and choose not to criticize them is when the machine does get built up. So the thing with the progressive machine is that, how do you stop it from becoming like the Illinois Democratic machine? People, you guys watching, have to be continuously involving. You just can't say, oh, well, we won the election, it's over now, and rest. No, you're never done fighting. It is never, ever done. The work is never done. And so with Chuy, well, then we as progressives, as independents, need to hold him accountable, yes, but also he can build that momentum and also let the Illinois Democratic machine out. And I hate saying this because it's going to get some blowback and criticism, but it's important to say this. Well, like, hey, listen up. You want to win, right? The Illinois Democratic machine, with all of its problems, compared to the DNC under Nancy Pelosi, at least under the Illinois Democratic machine, they're able to win and still keep a supermajority in the Senate and House and Governor's office. They are able to pull that off. The DNC, in the long run, are losing seats nationwide. So Chuy, going with the real front runner, and we'll see what happens in South Carolina, and then going in Super Tuesday. Hey, Illinois Democratic Party, this is the guy who's the front runner. Things are going to have to change, and you're going to have to communicate with the people again. And that means talking to people. And if you can't accept it, you're going to get voted out. And how do we bring that to Chuy? We got to make him accountable too. It's a problem. It's a big swamp of corruption.
Yeah.
And it is an uphill fight. And I'm being idealistic, and that's a problem that I have.
No, I mean,
but,
you're perfectly right.
It's important to bring it up.
It's a nebulous endeavor, and I do just want to again thank you guys for starting the studio, because it's usually the media that is supposed to be holding our people, holding power accountable, our unofficial fourth estate, in our American government machine. However, we know that major media is bought off. Look no further than CBS's recent stacked debate, which was just awful and depressing, to remember that this is the party that claims to fight for workers' rights and that blatantly lies to you instead of just openly admitting we don't care whether you live or die the way the Republican Party does. Independent media. This is the best we have to hold these progressive machines that are being built up at this moment accountable.
Right.
We do not have the same types of relationship that major media has with existing power dynamics.
And that's it. And this is what this show is doing. Fear and Loathing in the Windy City is doing. It is bringing truth to power.
Well, and we're, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it is.
And so much of what we're going to be dealing with this year is looking people that are getting into office. Are we moving towards a progressive direction? Are we trying to maintain a status quo? Are we changing existing power players to bring them to our side? Are we electing our people? Are we making the case for our issues? So I'm really grateful and glad to introduce my next guest, who is running for state senate, Mr. Foy Jimenez. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
for
much.
joining us.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. You said a couple things that were tremendously important to me. Independent media. That is something that I'm wholeheartedly behind. And I think as somebody that will be representing a majority Latino district, we need to encourage to have that same independent media in the Latino networks. I'm very happy to be on the show, and I look forward to talking about the topics at hand. I would love to discuss the conversation of the Chuy Garcia-Michael Madigan alliance. I particularly have a long history with not only Chuy Garcia, who I basically started my political career with, but also in Springfield in the Legislative Affairs Division, which was headed by the Speaker. So I'd love to continue that and let you know what my experience is when it is talking about independent politics here in Chicago.
Most definitely.
Okay.
And thank you so much for being on the show. And
Can I just say one thing?
right.
Today is Ash Wednesday. If somebody sees a marking on my forehead, it is because I am a proud and practicing Catholic, and so I just wanted to, let the audience know that that is the reason for my marking on my forehead, and I proudly represent Catholics here in Chicago.
And we're very glad for you to be on the show.
Thank you.
Despite this this holy day. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do appreciate you jumping right into one of the reasons why I really felt that you'd be a great guest for this show. On top of you running, you do have a storied history with both the Speaker and with Mr. Garcia, both machine builders in their own right, one old, one new, and yet auras of corruption always swirling around Chicago politics.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about, we're going to talk about your run,
Right.
but if you want to start with the history.
Well, I'd love to.
Yeah, your political
Yeah.
history with these
So
figures.
I started my political career working for Chuy Garcia, working in the 22nd Ward Independent Political Organization. The one thing that I remember working for Chuy is that I was proud to be working against somebody that was one of the few people at the time in the late 90s that was actually fighting the daily Democratic machine. Those were different times at the moment. At those times, you had Daley, who controlled Chicago, but also controlled the Latino areas of Chicago via the Hispanic Democratic Organization.
Right.
And it was at that time that I knew that I was a part of an organization, an independent political organization, that was fighting against those powers for the right things, for the people. I knew that working in Chuy's office, we were advocating for true independence and empowering of working class people, especially in the Latino community. So, that was my experience. And for many years, even until the last primary, I circulated and I, stood on behalf of Chuy Garcia because I knew that that's the type of politician I really believed in. And to some extent, I do admire his politics in Washington, and I do admire some of his policies. But when it comes to the recent history of his political alliances, I've noted that he's decided to back the Danny Solises of the world, to back Michael Madigan's, and he has gone in even further into anoint and appoint people within his own ranks that aren't necessarily the most qualified, but it's because they're part of his organization that he is handpicking them to be, specifically put in specific spots, political spots, in the southwest side of Chicago. I'll give you two examples.
Please.
The ward where I live in is the 25th ward. In the last municipal election, the alderman that we have now was running in that election, but he was running against a number of candidates, one of them being Chuy Garcia's hand-picked candidate to win that district and win that ward. That was Hilario Dominguez. Now, I had a big problem with that because for years, our alderman, Byron Cisco Lopez, had been fighting the established, had been fighting the Danny Solises of the world, and it was about time that Chuy backed him when he had an opportunity because he had seen a track record of independent politics. But Chuy did not do that. He wanted his own man in there, and that is part and parcel of machine politics. You want to have your own anointed person. You want to have your own selection. And I criticized that. I criticized that at my union. And I stood up in front of the House of Delegates, 300 strong, and said, this is the CTU, and it does not stand for Chuy Teachers Union. It stands for the Chicago Teachers Union, and we owe it to our brother, Byron Cisco Lopez, who is a member of a union, to support him because his track record is strong. Now, the other example I'd like to share with you is in the 14th ward in the same municipal election, Chuy Garcia backed the girlfriend of the current state representative. And again, the similar process because he wanted his own person to go against the alderman at the time, which is still the alderman. But there was one viable candidate. There was a very strong candidate that we interviewed as part of the Chicago Teachers Union, who is by the name of Jaime Guzman, who was more experienced and had worked for Chuy and basically had the experience, the knowledge, and the political savviness to do a good job. Yet Chuy did not go with that person. He wanted because he was independent. And that's one thing that I've done against Chuy for a few years now is I support him to a point. Because if Chuy Garcia taught me one thing, it's that it's good to be independent. You shouldn't say yes all the time. You should be a critical thinker. You should do what's best for the people.
Thank you. And it sounds like you have a storied history. You had a question?
Well, it's more just a comment. It's really impressive to know that even with all of this, especially with looking at the municipal election, when there was an opportunity to support progressives and independents that aren't part of the machine, there is still favoritism, especially amongst politicians, which goes back to the statement I always say, yeah, you could respect somebody that's in office, and yes, you might like them, and yes, they might represent you, but at the end of the day, they're still human, and they are always open to criticism.
Exactly.
And I respect Chuy Garcia. He has done a lot for a lot of people, but that doesn't mean he's a saint or perfect or he has his own motives to maintain power.
One last example I'd like to point out that I criticize is the Latino Leadership Council. It was an organization formed by Luis Gutierrez, the last congressman before Chuy, and the Latino Leadership Council, in its name, is talking about leadership. But yet, that organization was charging people $2,500 to be a part of that organization. To me, that is pay to play. To me, that is exclusive instead of inclusive. I criticized that publicly, and I said, Chuy, if this is your organization, why are you charging people that deserve to be in this organization? This is not what we're stand for. If you're going to promote leadership, don't put a price on it. So I did criticize him, and I still think that's wrong. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that I don't support him as a person or as a congressman? No. But when I think, and this is what I'm going to do in Springfield, when I think somebody's wrong, I'm going to say it. People want somebody that is going to say it like it is and not going to be afraid that because you donated to me or that I have a personal friendship with you. The politicians and public officials should say it like it is, and they shouldn't have any room for being silent when the community needs somebody to be outspoken.
Absolutely.
And I guess the problem with these machines is that someone on a lower rung, if Chuy's at the head of his machine, someone on the lower rung won't be speaking up and criticizing. And as you mentioned, the races in the 25th Ward, the races in the 14th Ward, there's a lot of reasons why some relationships don't work out between a power broker and someone that's running for office. But it seems like you've been had a very inside view of a lot of these developments in Chicago politics. You also worked for the Speaker.
Yes, that's true. I want to make sure that's very clear. I worked in Springfield, and I believe that was one of the best educations I've ever gotten because I know how Springfield works. Some of these candidates that are running for state representative, state senator, they've never experienced what it's like to be in the system and what it takes to get bills through. So I won't deny that I worked in the legislative affairs office. I didn't work as Mike Madigan's personal assistant. I worked in the legislative issues department, which taught me how to work through the committee process, how to handle legislation and the progress of it. But I will say this, you have to know the system to beat the system, to fix the system. So I am somebody that knows how Springfield works, and I want to fix it. I want to reform it on behalf of working class people. So if you elect somebody that is completely green, completely new, completely a rookie, they're not going to know how to tackle the real problems of facing our working class families. I am somebody that not only is independent, but I know how the system works. So I believe that people that really want to see change will be voting for somebody like myself because they know where to start and they know how to basically have an outspoken voice and navigate the channels in order to get things done.
Thank you for that. It's very succinctly put. And you seem to be paying your, I mean, like, you've been criticized if you've been on the inside of the machine, but you are running as an outsider.
Independent. As a matter of fact, I've earned the endorsement of the Chicago Sun-Times, and I've also earned the endorsement of the Chicago Tribune. And what they say is that my opponent has been in power for over 22 years. It's far too long. And when you have that much time in Springfield, you become cozy with the Commonwealth Edison's, which, by the way, gives him money, with the People's Gases, with all the special interests that basically allow you to have $1.5 million. That's what my opponent has. He has so much in his campaign coffers that he is able to have an onslaught against me. But money is important. I don't doubt that. But what's the source of his money? And will not he have to return those favors to those special interests? People that donate to me are people that are by and large, individual donors, people that believe in me and that want to change. They're the people in Bridgeport. They're the people in Garfield Ridge. They're the people in McKinley Park. They're the people of Pilsen that are saying, I can give you a little bit because I want to contribute to somebody that is going to bring about real change.
Yeah, and speaking of, we should talk about the district. You said you got your start in Little Village. I'm also from that neighborhood. There's always a lot going on, and there was a lot of moves that were happening while I was growing up. Chuy Garcia was alderman, and the seat that Tony Munoz currently sits in, I don't know if you want to tell the rest of that story.
Yeah, well, I was there too. In 1998, on St. Patrick's Day, was the primary. A lot of people say that Chuy became sort of a little bit too confident and believed that he was going to win because he was Chuy and he had been the senator. And, well, guess what? The Hispanic Democratic Organization that was headed by Mayor Daley and specifically run by Victor Reyes, who still is helping some of the senators, including my opponent, was able to defeat Chuy Garcia. And so independents have not been able, and I say independents because the word progressive has become, everybody throws that around. Originally, it was having the independence to think for yourself, and it should still be. And so independence has not been able to regain that seat for over 22 years. And it's just ironic that this primary will also be held on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, and it is a time when independents are going to regain that seat, and Froy Jimenez, somebody that once worked for Chuy Garcia, is going to be the next senator-elect.
I have a question. In regards towards Illinois, I mean, there's so much happening here, especially in our city, where there's environmental pollution and people are being impacted with the toxic waste from a lot of these facilities. What are you prepared to do to really bring in change? Because we have laws in the state that are 100 years old that no longer apply to today's standards. I mean, you have an asphalt plant next to a large 63-acre public open space. It's a park. And there's an asphalt plant right there. And then in Little Village, there are numerous other industrial facilities there too. Yes. And yet there are families and homes all around this city, and we're being ignored. There's lead in our drinking water.
So I have to say that this is a very pertinent question, especially for the people on the Southwest side. There are actually 2 asphalt plants that affect the people of Southwest side. There's Matt, but then there's also Reliable.
Okay.
I have not had an opportunity to discuss that my opponent has taken money from reliable asphalt plant on several occasions. That doesn't excuse reliable from following the law, and that doesn't excuse Matt from following the law. We should be very diligent in saying this is what the community needs as far as restrictions, as far as make sure that there's clean air, there's clean soil. But I would like to go one step further in saying we need to really hold the agency accountable, the Illinois EPA, and say, why isn't that you haven't been doing your job? And if not, let's have some hearings and let's hold those people in charge of those agencies accountable for saying, why did you drop the ball? There's one particular story that really bothers me, and it's last summer, there was people from the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization that had said that some of the neighbors around the southwest side were complaining that there was air pollution. And what the city of Chicago and what the some of the other stakeholders at those meetings said, well, why don't you tell those neighbors to go inside and close the windows? That was terrible. I'm surprised there wasn't more people outraged. I went to those meetings, Little Village Environmental Justice Organization, and said, how can I help? Right? This is somebody as a citizen. As a senator, I'm going to go farther and say, let's hold these people accountable. And, why don't we have politicians that are outraged as well? Some of the things that they didn't recognize is, well, it wasn't in my district. That's baloney. That's just garbage. It wasn't in my district. Because air pollution goes north, east, west, south, in different directions. And if it's, across the street from your district, I'm not going to say I'm not going to take care of those people because they're across the street and they're not in my district. That's a lousy excuse, and that's what the Senator Tony Munoz used when the Sun-Times asked him that exact same question. I don't think that we should have boundaries on the environment. I'll tell you that.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Do you think the speaker feels the same way? Is he backing your opponent? Is he staying neutral here?
The speaker backs the Democratic establishment. He wants people that are yes men. And my opponent has been a yes man all his career. I am not a yes man. I am somebody that's going to stand up and say, you know what, we got to do things differently around here. I knock down doors and people want change. People are very disenfranchised with the Democratic Party. I will say this. And Democratic Party here in Illinois. Because we've had so many cases of political corruption, we've had so many cases of bribery, ghost payrolling. That's just state senators right there. We had a number of people that were, accused of bribery, convicted, or have themselves said that they are guilty of bribery, and we have somebody that's a ghost payroller. Within my union, I criticize my own union bosses for employing a Cook County commissioner full-time while he's doing a full-time job as a Cook County commissioner. How could you do two full-time jobs? That's wrong, and we're basically, cheating the taxpayers when it comes to that. I have no qualms telling people, powerful people, that they're wrong and that they're cheating the taxpayers. One of my other key issues is helping taxpayers. People in Illinois are leaving Illinois, they're leaving Chicago because they are tired of being taxed so much. And they're not even fair taxes. When I knock on people's doors or talk to establishments or businesses, they say, Freud, do you know how much I'm paying in property taxes? And nobody can explain it to me. So I'm looking forward to going to Springfield and say, let's have a fair formula in which is clear, let's have transparency, and let's let Fritz Kagi, who last session tried to get a couple bills through, but was denied because powerful lobbying groups stood in his way. And I'm going to be an ally for Fritz Kagi. I want to make sure that the working class people and the taxpayers have proper legislation that is transparent, that is democratic, and that is on the side of those that have been forgotten.
Thank you. And, that sounds all very great and amazing. And I really am grateful that you're on the show. But I do have to ask, the Democratic Party has perennially been corrupt. The Speaker's office has had transactions with corruption. What would you say to critics that say that you've been on the inside too much and seen a lot of corruption firsthand?
I haven't been on the inside. But the last 12 years I've been teaching. I specifically left Springfield because I was so disgusted with having to help legislators that I knew weren't doing a good job. That's why I left Springfield. And then I said to myself, the next time I'm coming to Springfield, it's because I'm going to be the one making decisions, and I know I'm going to be making decisions on behalf of working class people. I'm tired of helping enable a system that keeps bad politicians in power. That's why I left. And I will say this, that I believe in term limits for myself and my other colleagues. I believe just as we have for president, should have a certain amount of time and you should be able to get reelected, but not forever, not for 40 years or not for 22 years like my opponent.
Thank you for that.
I would like to say one other thing is that pensions is something that I am also very concerned with, like a lot of people are. We haven't discussed some of the policy issues that are really sort of important in our state. My opponent has made laws so that he and one other person could gain from a Chicago Police Department's pension without him having to work all those years. I think that's wrong for Chicago Police Department and their members who do put in 30 plus years. They deserve that pension. Mm-hmm. And every other first responder that is putting that much time, they deserve that pension. We shouldn't have laws like my opponent did that basically circumvent the process and allow him to get two pensions. I don't like double dipping, and I believe that we should call people out. And the first person I'm going to call is Tony Munoz.
Well, I appreciate the passion. Definitely, pension's going to be a huge issue leading, into the next decade. Tony Munoz, did come out in favor of attacking the asphalt plants.
Yes.
Which put him at odds with the local alderman, Alderman Cardenas, who you've
Correct.
also criticized. However,
I don't have no qualms criticizing people that are making tough decisions. But go ahead, finish your question.
However, Alderman Cardenas has donated to your campaign. His Democratic organization has.
He wants to pick a winner. He sees the writing on the wall. He sees that the past senators in the area, and I'm speaking specifically about Martin Sandoval and Tony Munoz, they come from HDO. He sees that that's going to be going pretty soon. We're going to be electing more independent people. We're going to be electing some progressives. So people that back me as the next state senator are seeing that I'm the future. The Tribune, the Sun-Times, and people that are in the know can recognize somebody that has the talent and has the courage to go against the system. And
you're very great with your nuance. So I don't want to stay on this topic for a little bit. I do want you to close out with more about the district. But, it's great. The Sun-Times, the Tribune have endorsed you. Cardenas himself is seeing the writing on the wall of where power dynamics are going and, has decided to throw some money to back you. Does that make Cardenas an independent? Does this make is this not kind of a trend towards the media normalizing a new winner? Or is this part of a national trend of power changing hands? I mean, it seems like George Cardenas has always been a loyal soldier of the machine, and it's only when he's a little bit self-interested that he can adopt the label of independent. Does that mean that people that are trying to oust the establishment should be supporting him?
Well, I will say this. There is another election in our district, and that is an election for 12th Ward committeeman. Now, the committeemen, most people don't know what they do. But basically what they do is they're the political decision makers of that area. So when there is a vacancy or when there is somebody to support, like for president or for judges or for any political position, the committeemen are the ones that basically decide for that area. And the people say, hey, what does the committeeman say? That's an old Chicago tradition. Now, the committeeman of the 12th Ward right now is Tony Munoz. Tony Munoz is the one that has been empowering the Chicago Democratic machine for years. So do we need a new committeeman? Of course we need a new committeeman in 12th Ward. The committeeman of the 25th Ward was Danny Solis. Do we need a new committeeman in the 25th Ward? Of course we do. And so that is to say that people that, you're talking about George Cardenas and Tony Munoz, they're going, it's a rematch of 4 years ago. They basically fought each other out. Now, times change, and I've heard from other voters or other people, residents in the 12th Ward, that they would like to see Tony gone, period.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I did want to bring up one other topic that's local to the area.
Sure.
Some years ago, Alma Anaya ran against Angela Sandoval, and there was some commotion about yard signs that Sandoval had with an endorsement with Chuy Garcia's name on it.
Right.
Even though he had not formally endorsed her, but he had a history of working with her family and with her on different things that she was working on. But Alma Anaya had worked in his office, and he had clearly worked hard to make Alma Anaya the candidate and the winner in that. But we saw signs for Sandoval and Garcia, which some people in the 25th Ward, where I was working the election, took as, wow, they really don't respect the people's intelligence.
Right.
There's criticism right now that you're using Byron Cincho Lopez's signs with your name without his formal endorsement.
I love to talk, expand about that.
Please.
The example that you used, the signs that said Garcia / Sandoval or Angie, those were done on the last day of the election, on election day. And they were done without the permission or consultation or any sort of dialogue between those two people, Chuy Garcia and Angie Sandoval. They never sat down and talked. What's different with my case is that I have helped and I have had a relationship, a political alliance with Byron Cincho Lopez since he was running for 25th Ward Alderman. So we have a connection, we have an alliance. I have helped him through Chicago Teachers Union, and I've circulated for him. I know the man well. He knows me well. We respect each other because we are independents. And that's what those signs say. They say independent leadership. And I, like I said, had a conversation with him, and I said, Byron, I am tired of Danny Solis signs that say, you've seen them around the ward probably. There's a little dog, and it says, clean up after your dog, Danny Solis. I'm tired of seeing Danny Solis' name. We should have a new committeeman. That committeeman is you. And I had that conversation early on, and then I had a follow-up conversation with him. The point being that I actually looked him in the eye and I said, I would like you to be our next committeeman. I would like to help you in that regard. And the first day that he had meetings about him running, I was there. And very few people were, but I know that the people who were there can witness that I supported him. And so what my signs say is that we're tired of Danny Solis. We need a new committeeman. And I had a very specific conversation with Byron. I said, how would you feel if we had independent signs that says Froy Jimenez for 1st Senate District and Byron Cincho Lopez for 25th Ward committeeman? And his response was very clear, is do whatever you wish, Froy. Was no communication where this was done at the end. My alliance with Byron has been going on for years, and these signs have been out from the very beginning of the campaign. So I am somebody that is open. I am somebody that has the ability to say, hey, let me look at you there. This is what we're going to do. There's nothing suspicious here. We're doing this because we want independent leadership in the 25th Ward and the 1st District.
Thank you for clarifying that and so much detail. And I just want to close it out, because Tony Munoz has been kind of acquiescing to some demands. He is trying to become a better champion for the environment.
It's too little, too late.
He is trying to switch gears a little bit. I mean, there does seem to be a trend in Illinois. I was there when the former alderman of 22nd Ward, Munoz, Ricardo Munoz, pushed through a trucking logistics hub where a coal-fired plant used to be. So a local organization, the Little Village Environmental Organization, fought hard to try to make that industrial land into something clean and green and bring those kinds of jobs there. A staunch Chewy ally instead pushed a trucking hub, and he blatantly said on city council, I'm doing it for the money. But in classic Chicago, he spun it, but not money for me, money for my people. Those are jobs, those are careers. And, what would you say that, Tony Munoz made these compromises to give jobs to his community. Now he's fighting for the environment for his community. He's adapting. He has some history in Springfield. Why should his constituents take a chance on you?
I think that's a slap in the face for him to go in that direction. He's basically become somebody that's interested in the environment in the last few months. Voters are not, so gullible to say, hey, where have you been the last 20 years? Where has been your policies? As a matter of fact, with CTU, in education, he's the one that sponsored the bill on restricting collective bargaining rights for small classrooms. So I would say to Tony, there are so many things that are hypocritical in your stances that stand side to side with me here and let's debate. Let the people see between the two of us who has the truth and who's hiding, because I've been challenging him to a debate for over a week now. And I say, if you really want to have an excuse and you really want to explain to the people, do it alongside in a very neutral setting with media, with people that are going to ask some tough questions like yourselves, and let the voters decide who really is the one that is in the best interest of the working class people of the 1st District. So far, Tony has been silent, just like his record has been in Springfield and with the people of the 1st District. Absent and silent to this day. I challenge you, Tony Munoz, if you really don't want to have these questions out in the open, let's debate and let the people of the 1st District decide for themselves who is in the best interest and who should be the future state senator of this district.
Thank you so much,
Right, that's a
for
good note to
Jimenez, for
end
being on our show. I do understand that you'll be having an open forum on March 9th on the southwest side that Tony Munoz is also invited to. He's also invited onto this program to discuss his side. But thank you again for supporting independent media,
No problem.
for sharing your history, and for running the way you are. So
Thank you for your time, and I look
There we
forward to
go.
coming back as senator-elect, God willing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So again, this is Fear and Loathing in the Windy City. Got a pretty good bird's eye view now of Chicago politics. There's a lot of personality, there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of issues, and then there's the material reality on the ground. People are broke, people are desperate, people are losing their lives, and people are getting sick from the air they breathe, the water they drink. And how do we fix this? By keeping everyone accountable. And clearly our media is not doing this job anymore. So thank you so much for tuning in to 99's Perspective Shows. We'll be back next Wednesday.